Hey everybody, so here we are at the NHL All-Star break, and this is a very, very big benchmark in the NHL season. January is coming to an end. We are headed to the home stretch here, the last couple months of the regular season. I thought that now is a pretty good time to take a look at the standings, just look and see where everyone's at, which teams are in, which teams are out of the playoffs, which teams are out but have a chance to still get into the postseason. And just take a look around at the standings and see where we're at in the NHL right now, as we are certainly headed towards the crunch time of the NHL season. So before we start, I just quickly want to remind everyone to please hit that like button down below. And if you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button as well. Both of those things really, really help out and are greatly appreciated. So let's start in the East here with the Metropolitan Division. We have Washington leading the way, as they have pretty much all season long. Best team in the league. They are flying high. Pittsburgh is in second place right now with 67 points. They are, despite all the injuries, are having a fantastic season. They look like a real legitimate Stanley Cup threat once again this season. And the New York Islanders are in third at 63 points, 4 points behind Pittsburgh for second. Islanders haven't been as good recently, but they did have a very strong start to the season, which has obviously given them a bit of a cushion. But I think they're going to be an interesting team to watch down the stretch to see if they keep it together and if they get back on the right track, or if they struggle the rest of the way they have the past few weeks. So those three teams as of right now are in divisional playoff spots in the Metro and are holding strong so far this season. In the Atlantic, we have Boston in first place with 70 points. Boston's just having a very, very strong season all around. They've looked great pretty much all year. Sure, they've had some stretches where it hasn't been awesome, but for the most part, I mean, they only have 10 regulation losses all season, so they're in very good shape. Tampa Bay is in second place, 8 points behind Boston with 62 and 3 games in hand. Tampa started off a little slow, but has really, really come on here recently, and I think that's helped them. That's really helped them climb the standings, and they've gone from a non-playoff team to a playoff team over the past 6 to 8 weeks. And right now, the Florida Panthers are in third place with 61 points, just behind Tampa Bay. They're having a really interesting season. They score a ton of goals. Florida scores an absolute ton of goals. They also give up a ton of goals. They are a high-flying offensive team. Now, they've been very, very good here. Recently, 8-2 in their last 10 games on a 6-game win streak. That has obviously helped propel them into a playoff spot. But we'll see if they can get it together well enough defensively to not only make the playoffs, but make a deep playoff run. Those are the top three teams in the Atlantic in divisional spots right now. The wild card teams right now are Columbus and Carolina. Columbus is at 62 points. Carolina is at 61. Both of them currently in the playoffs, but certainly no guarantees that they'll make it. They've had solid seasons, but that Metro division is extremely, extremely close, very, very competitive. And they've got teams behind them looking to take their spots away. The first team out of the playoffs is the Philadelphia Flyers, 1 point out at 60 points. The second team out is the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's the All-Star break, and the Toronto Maple Leafs are outside of a playoff spot right now. This has been a very trying year for Toronto, to say the least. They made the coaching change early in the season. They were going really, really well under Sheldon Keefe, but here recently things haven't been as good, and they've actually dropped to being 4 points out of a playoff spot right now in Toronto. They're still certainly within reach of making the playoffs still, however, whether that's knocking out Carolina, knocking out Florida, knocking out Columbus, they're still very much in reach of making the playoffs, although right as of now, they're not in a playoff spot. I really see Philadelphia and Toronto as the only outside teams in the Eastern Conference that could potentially pull back into a playoff spot. I think that those two are very much still in it. After Toronto, though, we go down to Buffalo with 51 points, Montreal with 51 points, New York Rangers with 50, Ottawa way out with 42, New Jersey at 41, and then the all-time bad Detroit Red Wings at 28. Unbelievably bad season for Detroit. I think everyone from Buffalo down is out of it. Buffalo's 10 points out of a playoff spot at this point. It would take a remarkable run in the last third or so of the season, and one of those teams currently in completely shitting the bed and collapsing for any of those bottom teams to make it. So I think Buffalo, Montreal, the Rangers, Ottawa, New Jersey, and Detroit are pretty much out of playoff contention at this point. Philadelphia and Toronto are outside looking in right now, but still have a very real shot of getting in. And then everyone else we've talked about in the East is currently in a playoff spot. Washington, Pittsburgh, New York, Islanders, Boston, Tampa Bay, Florida, Columbus, and Carolina are your playoff teams right now. Moving over to the Western Conference, in the Central Division, we have St. Louis Blues leading the Central and leading the West with 68 points. No Stanley Cup hangover at all for the Blues this season. They've had another tremendous year defending their Stanley Cup title. We'll see how they go into the postseason this year, but they certainly look like they're going to be the number one seed in the West. Second place right now in the Central is Colorado with 62 points. They're having a very, very solid season. They've overcome some tough injury issues, and now things seem to be going pretty well for them. And they're a second-place team at this point. And Dallas is in third place with 58 points, 4 behind Colorado with a game in hand. Those are your three divisional spots for the Central. Moving on to the Pacific. Now, the Pacific is the wildest and craziest division in the NHL this year. You have Vancouver in first with 58 points. You have Edmonton in second with 57. You have Calgary in third with 57. You have Arizona as the first wildcard team with 57. And you have Vegas as the second wildcard team, once again, with 57 points. You have 4 teams in the Pacific Division right now tied with 57 points. The only difference is the tiebreaker, number of games played. Edmonton's only played 49, Calgary's played 50, Arizona's played 51, and Vegas has played 52. Obviously, come the end of the season, every team plays the same amount, so that number of games will even out, and we'll see who's able to really take this division by storm in the last third or so of the season, and which team ends up not being. Now, they all could make the playoffs potentially if things stay the way that they are now. All 4 of them would make the playoffs, but the order is going to play a big role in this. And right now, you have 5 teams in the Pacific, all in playoff spots, all at either 58 or 57 points. So that division is obviously really, really up for grabs still. But right now, Vancouver, Edmonton, and Calgary are your 3 divisional teams, and Arizona and Vegas are your wildcard teams in the West. Outside of the playoff picture are the Winnipeg Jets at 54 points, the Chicago Blackhawks at 54 points, the Minnesota Wild at 52 points, the Nashville Predators at 51 points, the San Jose Sharks at 46, Anaheim at 43, and the worst team in the conference, the Los Angeles Kings, at 41 points. Now, the 3 California teams, I think, are out of it, done. It's over. They're not yet to 50 points. They're more than 10 points back, all of them, of a playoff spot as of right now. They are done. San Jose, your season's over. Anaheim, your season's over. Los Angeles, your season's over. Nashville, Minnesota, Chicago, and Winnipeg, while I think it's unlikely that more than maybe one of them pulls into a playoff spot, they're not, I don't think, officially really out of it yet. They're still within striking distance. Nashville at 51 points, but a significant number of games in hand, 3 or 4 games in hand on pretty much everyone else in the conference that they're trailing. They've only played 47 games so far. So if they win 3 of those games that they have in hand, that's an extra 6 points. They're at 51. That would get them to 57, which is where Arizona and Vegas are now. Minnesota's at 52. They're only 5 points back. While I don't see Minnesota making the playoffs, they still could conceivably make a run. Chicago playing very, very well recently, They're at 54 points. They are only 3 back, and Winnipeg at 54 points is only 3 back. So those are two teams that I think are still very, very much in the race as far as getting a playoff spot. So in the Western Conference, our playoff teams right now are St. Louis, Colorado, and Dallas from the Central, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary from the Pacific, and Arizona and Vegas as wild cards. Winnipeg, Chicago, still very much in the playoff race, only 3 points back. Minnesota and Nashville, 52 points and 51 points, still conceivably in the race. And San Jose, Anaheim, and LA, I think, are out of it, all at 46 points or less at this point in the season. I think they're all certainly done. So those are your standings right now across the NHL, Eastern and Western Conference. It's how the playoffs are looking at this point. There are still certainly some teams on the outside right now that could potentially work their way back in. There are certainly some teams that are very well out of it, and there are certainly some teams that I think are guaranteed playoff spots at this point, already locked in near the top of these conferences. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.